How you doing? I'm Callan and this is Slapped Ham. Today we're looking at some unsettling images, from an entity captured at a spiritualist convention to a ghost photo that may have instigated a murder confession. We take a look at 10 creepy vintage ghost photos that are sure to give you the chills. But before we get into it, remember to hit that subscribe button for more awesome, scary content just like this. This eerie photo was taken at a Californian spiritualist convention in 1968. Author Robert A. Ferguson was giving a talk on his latest book, Psychic Telemetry, New Key to Health, Wealth and Perfect Living, when someone in the crowd snapped this picture. In the photo, just left of Ferguson, there's a translucent image of a man in a suit. When Ferguson first saw the image, he immediately identified the mysterious figure as his late brother Walter, who died in World War II. Many skeptics have tried debunking this now notorious photo. However, the most alarming detail about this image is that it was taken on Polaroid, ruling out the possibility of double exposure or extra elements added in the darkroom. This unsettling self-portrait of William H. Mumler allegedly contains the spirit of his dead cousin floating ominously in the background. In New York in the 1860s, William Mumler began working as a medium after he produced a series of astonishing photographs that purportedly contained spirits of the deceased. Word soon spread around the country as people began to pay large sums of money for Mumler to contact their dead relatives and produce proof in the form of photographs. His most notable work is a portrait of Mary Todd Lincoln and her late husband Abraham Lincoln. Mumler's career, however, became unstuck when several people noticed that a lot of the spirits that were showing up in his pictures were actually still alive. This led to Mumler being put on trial for fraud, and although he was eventually acquitted, his reputation was left in tatters. At the time, there were several credible witnesses, such as journalist Moses A. Dow, who supported Mumler and his spirit photography. They maintained that the photos were genuine evidence of the existence of ghosts and an afterlife. What do you think? Could Mumler actually contact the dead and reveal their essence in the form of a photograph, or is it all just a scheme cooked up to make a few extra dollars? Many think that this photo contains the spirit of a young girl who died in the Australian outback. In 1959, a priest from Adelaide, R.S. Blantz, took this photo while exploring Corroboree Rock in Australia's Northern Territory. He claims that he was enjoying the scenery, taking photos, and didn't see anything out of the ordinary. That was until he got the photos developed and couldn't quite believe what he saw. There in one of the pictures is a young girl in a pale blue and white dress. She has a translucent quality and looks out of place in the rugged landscape. Corroboree Rock holds a spiritual significance for the indigenous communities that live in the area. The Arunda tribe believe the area is dangerous for women, children, and uninitiated men. It's forbidden to climb the rock itself. Has Blantz accidentally captured a spirit that is somehow attached to Corroboree Rock? Is this young girl now forced to eternally wander the vast, empty landscape of the Northern Territory? This is an eerie vintage ghost photo from Brazil. It's not known when the photo was taken, but it was developed using plate glass photography, and judging by the clothing, it probably dates this photograph to the very early 1900s. The image shows two people sitting for a portrait photograph. However, there's a strange woman floating horizontally across the center of the picture. The story goes that the man sitting in this photo confessed to a murder after the image was produced. It's alleged that the mysterious floating woman fell victim to the man on the left and was killed just a few weeks earlier. The photographer, who was not a medium or a spiritualist, claimed he could see the spirit of the woman through the lens of his camera. However, when he looked at his subjects normally, there was no one else there. Some historians think that the photographer knew about the crime and deliberately superimposed an image of the woman to drive the killer to a confession. Others think that the woman's spirit really did appear in the photo, perhaps seeking justice for her untimely death. In 1872, in the bustling town of Bristol in the UK, spiritualist John Beattie was experimenting with seances and photography. He and his colleague Eugene Roches would attempt to summon spirits into the room via Ouija boards and other mediums. A series of photos were taken in an attempt to capture anything unusual. This photo is an example of one of those seances. You can see in the middle of the men, floating ominously above them, is a strange white shape. It's separated into two pieces, a small inverted L shape above a much larger body of pale mist. This is obviously well before digital image manipulation could play a role, so it begs the question, what is this strange object? It's possible, as with other spiritualists at the time, that the image is an outright hoax, a double exposure used for ill-gotten gains. Some historians, however, believe the photograph is genuine evidence that these men connected with spirits and energies from other realms. St Mary's Guildhall in Warwickshire, England is notorious for eerie happenings and ghost sightings, and when this photo surfaced in 1985, people were shocked to see hard evidence of the paranormal. This photo was taken during a meeting of the Coventry Freemen's Guild. The scary thing is, no one remembers the tall hooded figure that can be seen at the top left of the table. Over a dozen people that attended the meeting that day said they didn't see a robed monk during their opening prayer, yet very clearly there's a ghostly presence at the head of the table. It's interesting to note that St Mary's Guildhall once held Mary, Queen of Scots prisoner, which many say is the reason the hall has such an ominous feeling about it. Within the enormous medieval complex is an area known as the Draper's Room. Visitors often report feelings of extreme sadness, anxiety and depression when they enter the room. Some have been known to burst into tears for no reason at all. Could this strange vintage ghost photo prove that this notorious Guildhall is really haunted? This is another classic example of spirit photography that was employed at the height of the spiritualist movement at the beginning of the 20th century. Taken by infamous paranormal investigator William Hope, the photograph depicts an elderly couple who have allegedly been visited by a dead relative, seen hovering in the top half of the picture. Much like William H. Mumler, whom we mentioned earlier, William Hope would advertise to the bereaved that he could contact the dead. He would have his customers pose for a portrait photograph and attempt to summon their lost loved ones into the room. He would then take a series of photos and wait to see if he had made contact. More often than not, supposed spirit beings were seen in the freshly developed images, eerie shadows or disembodied faces. In February 1922, William Hope's spirit photos were put to the test by fellow paranormal investigator Harry Price. Price secretly marked Hope's photography plates to test the authenticity of them. When the photos were developed, the secret markings were nowhere to be found, meaning that Hope had switched the plates with ones he had prepared earlier, plates that already contained superimposed spirits on them. This covert experiment outed Hope as a fraud, yet somehow he managed to retain a staunch following of believers in his work. Author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was one such proponent of Hope's work. He went on to threaten Harry Price for outing Hope as a fraud, stating it was a conspiracy to derail the spiritualist movement. So, was Hope a fraud, or could he really contact the dead? Whatever the case may be, it's undeniable his photos evoke an eerie sense of unease. The origins of this photo are as mysterious as the photo itself. No one seems to know when or where the photo was taken, and the photographer has never come forward. Yet, the unsettling image has proliferated around ghost investigation forums for decades. In the photo, we can see a small child's disembodied face hovering next to an old tombstone. It's pale and translucent. Could it be that this is the grave of a young boy? Perhaps the spirit is somehow attached to the person buried there. However, it is possible that the images are fake, and that's the reason why there's so little information available. Either way though, it still makes for a very creepy photo. For decades, this photo of a ghostly monk kneeling at the altar has been the source of much speculation in the paranormal community. Gordon Carroll took this eerie photograph in 1964 when visiting the Church of St Mary's and All Saints in Northamptonshire, England. At first, Carroll didn't notice anything particularly strange in the church. That was until he had the photos developed when he noticed the eerie translucent figure kneeling at the altar. For years, people have debated whether the figure looks like a monk or possibly even a medieval knight praying at the foot of the church altar. Others have noted it might be the ghost of an old cleaning lady that once worked in the church. To the right of the figure there looks to be a bucket. Carroll has always defended the authenticity of the photograph, claiming it's not been altered in any way. Before we get to that number one spot and take a look at a ghost captured on an old steam train, remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on channel notifications. That way you'll get every update from our channel. On a sunny afternoon in the mid-1960s, the iconic Alberta steam train was gearing up for its last ever journey. Locals and journalists gathered round to see the grand old train leave the station one last time. And as they did, they took several photographs, one which would become famous for something a little more eerie than a retiring train. In the photo you can see 4 men, including the driver, standing at the lead cart of the train. However, if you look in the right window, a face can be seen peering out. It looks to be an old lady wearing some kind of ornamental headdress. During its operation, many drivers said that the train was haunted. They claimed to have ploughed through strange misty figures on the tracks, only to find nothing there. Doors would open and close on their own, latches would lock and unlock, eerie whispers were heard down empty carriages. One driver even said the train itself would behave erratically when passing over a bridge known for suicides. The train would speed up and slow down on its own, once the brakes cut out momentarily right as the train passed over the notorious bridge. Could this photo then really have captured the spirit of a restless soul that once haunted the old Alberta steam train? If you can't get enough of the creepy images, then why not check out our ghost photo playlist right there. There's also some playlist links in the description box below for you to binge on. Hit that upward facing thumb as well, because it lets us know you're enjoying the content. And that's it for me. I'll see you all next time.